the great Dave Meltzer dumb moment of the week. Yes,
this is the first in the history of PWT, a two-parter.
Jason G from the SAT posts Dave Meltzer, and he says, "Cry me a river, Dave. Cry me a river. Oh, cry me a river." So, yeah, here's Dave just whining about, but if it was WWE and TNA, I mean, if it was AEW and TNA, they'd be roasting. No, dude. And Dave's about to be wrong about this as well. And I'm going to just tell you guys why before he even says it. Because when TNA was cooking with AEW, man, that's when Kenny boosted TNA's ratings. That's when, yes, Tony Khan was taking shots, but like Christian Cage won the title. It was a big moment in AEW. They were cooking then, man. Okay, as well. People were there for it until Tony Khan it up and went and took TNA TV time to talk about TNA and WWE. So now Meltzer's like sitting here on everybody. Oh, if it was Joe Hendry and AEW, people would. It's like, shut up, man. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, let's listen to Dave coping here.
One thing that is I do find really interesting, though, is that with NXT has turned it around by introducing new characters to the show. And like they'll bring in guys from TNA. Can you imagine if AEW was bringing in these guys like Zach Wentz? The people are getting mad enough about, we don't want
these guys like Zach Wentz. You mean the guy who was already at WWE, who got released on some and stayed doing his rascal thing in TNA that was over in NXT already? Yeah, if AEW brought them in, people would say he was a game changer. It's the AEW fans that ruin it. It's you, Dave, stooging when people show up before they show up in AEW that ruins it. It's not WWE's booking them well. Dave can't just admit WWE's booking them well because he thinks Tony Khan and this AEW stuff, it's actually better. Oh, it's actually better, Brian. But WWE's just, it's just hot again and whatever. That's not for any reason. It's just because it is. Just because it is. There's no explanation. There's no reason to why it's hot again. And Dave doesn't understand. No, we're marking out for the way they're booking these guys, right? And the way they're using them. An invasion angle. Tony Khan brought TNA and Ring of Honor and New Japan guys in and make them feel equal to or above AEW. The Ring of Honor world title has been shown on AEW TV more times than the AEW world title in the last how many months. AEW treats itself like it's equal to all these other things. WWE is like above in a way, right? So when they do this invasion style, like, why are the TNA guys here? Oh, anyone can just be backstage in NXT. It's not really like that. But with the TNA thing, it opens the floodgates a little bit, right? And in AEW, they don't explain that. It's just like, Billy Starks is here. She was in Ring of Honor. She gets a TV title match here in AEW without ever being on AEW TV. And then Athena, because she's the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion, why doesn't she just take on Monet? Tony Khan had a chance to merge, fusion, the Ring of Honor belts in an invasion style thing with his current AEW titles, and then remade ROH with the old aesthetic and recrowned champions and for the new era or whatever. He had a chance to do interesting things like that. Instead, he didn't. Instead, he took Jericho, made him the champ, and then feature Ring of Honor 6-man titles more than the AEW 6-man titles and like that. It's so stupid. It makes no sense. And that's just it, Dave. It has nothing to do with, WWE is using TNA guys. It has to do with the way they're being used, dude. And the best guy isn't Tony Khan when it comes to booking this. You know, he needs to understand.
The best guy is Tony Khan.
Let's continue here.
When an ROH guy's on and this and that, if they were bringing in Zach Wentz and Joe Hendry, God, I like Joe Hendry and everything, but Jordan Grace and all this in AEW, those fans.
But Jordan Grace and all this, you mean the woman who signed to WWE, who is now currently signed to WWE? Like, what do you mean? If they brought Juggernaut into AEW, everyone would be saying, oh, she's going to save the women's division in AEW. So that's insane, man. That's insanity. She'd be Camille'd in like 2 minutes. She'd be Monet's bodyguard, and then she'd disappear, never to be seen again.
Fans would just be crapping on it so bad. We don't want to see these guys, and in NXT, the fans there, they embrace everyone except for Ridge Holland for whatever reason, but everyone else that comes in from
except for Ridge. No, they embrace him as a heel, as like a gatekeeper heel.
Baron Corbin, anyone, right? Anyone from another company, they just embrace it. They're so happy that they're gracing the Performance Center with that. And
no one really cared. Like, okay, when Moose came out, people popped for it, but I don't think people care all that much, dude. That they care that they're gracing them with their presence. Look how jealous he is. If AEW struck up the partnership and booked everything the exact same way, and let's say Ricky Starks and Sean Spears and them came from WWE to NXT and the shoe is on the other foot, Dave would be like, well, AEW is just crushing. I mean, he's clearly a great booker. He wouldn't keep the same energy. He'd be slobbering all over Tony Khan if Tony Khan was doing this exact same thing. And then he projects onto everyone and goes, well, these fans, this bug-eyed, shark-eyed monster, dead behind the eyes, shark-eyed freak, man. That's what Dave is, dude.
You bring in new guys, and it's really tough. One thing that is,
Ash, what do you make of his like cope here?
Does Dave even properly watch the WWE product, or he just like fast forwards through this and just makes up stuff?
What you just said.
I've said it before,
writing his paper.
and I've said it on this podcast before, and I'll say it again. Dave talks so much I can't tell if he's talking out of his ass or his mouth.
So we move along here, right? Dave Meltzer gets into a very heated argument with Raj Giri. They go back and forth like Inception style, crazy Inception style, okay? This is, I believe this will be the main event of this evening here, because this one, there's a lot here to get to, okay? So we're like in Meltzer Inception here. So I'm clicking through. This guy, Hap the Cat, we covered this before, I believe, where he tags Dave Meltzer and says, if Sting made it clear to Tony Khan that it was important to him to induct Luger into the Hall of Fame, would that change everything in terms of Tony trying to negotiate something with WWE? And then Meltzer says, write that sentence and replace Tony Khan with Nick Khan.
The best guy's Tony Khan.
Taking shots at Nick, dude. Okay. And now he's like, replace that Tony Khan with Nick Khan. They're the same Khan. They're both con men. They're both men who con. I thought that was adorable. And then 1, 2, 3, Matt Too Sweet says, Sting isn't even active on the roster. It's a 5-minute induction. Rock, Brett, and Foley did Ken Shamrock's TNA induction. Tony not letting Sting go is petty. It's for Lex. Which I was the first to say, by the way. Okay. Dave Meltzer goes, Tony did that with Billy Gunn. What happened? Why wasn't Lex on TV for Sting's retirement match? Because it was on a pay-per-view. You keep saying TV because Dave is a liar, okay? And he skirts around, and you have to watch with con men, with carnies, right? And I pointed this out with Edge, and I'm not saying Edge is a con man, but he's trained in the art of carny, dude, right? You have to watch what these fools say. Why is he on TV for his last match? Well, because it was a pay-per-view, man. It was a pay-per-view, bro. So Luger will be there with Sting. That's like, you might sell a ticket. You might actually sell doing that, okay? The Hall of Fame is like, oh, the attendance. Well, like Luger's not drawing attendance, you know, but people will, like for the Hall of Fame, it's like a free thing they're doing, you know? So Dave, just the way he talks, you have to look out for what he says. But he says, for Sting's retirement match, why wasn't Billy Gunn at the DX reunion? Well, why did RVD get to wrestle matches under a Legends deal, Dave? Why don't you bring up that anecdotal piece of evidence? What happened when AEW got television? When you study history. And he keeps saying this, when you study history. No, you dumb. It's not studying history to just say this thing that happened 3 years ago or whatever. Well, it was historical. I know. Shut up, Dave. It's not studying history, the inner you and Tony Khan bitching about what Tony Khan was mad about 4 years ago in text. That's not history, bro. Okay? Shut the fuck up, man. You don't know what you're talking about ever. Ever. Has this guy ever known what he's talking about? When you study history, what does that have to do with anything? What happened at the DX reunion? Triple H took a pot shot. Vince was still in charge. What the f- do you want? What do you want to have happen? What happened when RVD wrestled matches? Did he go and say, the WWE man, or did you tell MJF to do that? What happened when Tony Khan let AEW guys go out and talk about WWE, who've never even been in WWE? What happened then, Dave? Why do you only bring up these certain instances when that was so early on in AEW's career. What happened when Sami Zayn brought up AEW unprovoked on Raw, and they brought it up when they didn't have to do it and let millions of people know what the it even was? What happened then? Was that a good lookout, or are you complaining about that? Like, we can just pull all these random instances throughout all of this. What happened when Tony Khan took out ads trashing NXT during NXT? What happened then? What happened when Tony went and buried WWE on TNA TV and didn't have the balls to do it on his own TV? What happened then? We can pick all these moments. It's not studying history to point out you're studying Tony Khan's dumb history. It's just, it drives me insane when he does this. It's like, what about this? What about that? Who gives a? We're talking about this right now. Why was Undertaker and Mick Foley allowed to show up at Conrad Thompson's Ric Flair's last match, sponsored by Blue Chew? Like, why was he allowed to do that? I don't know, bro. Just shut up, Dave. You are trying to do a tit for tat, and it's gross and disgusting when fans, especially when fans are saying what's important is Lex. Well, WWE, what about what's important for Sting? Well, Sting can still go with WWE if he wants to tomorrow, bro. No one can stop him from doing that. Lex is like a guy who was ostracized. Vince wouldn't induct him, right? He learned to walk again. Raj Giri responds and says, when WWE let Chris Jericho do an interview with Steve Austin on their TV immediately following WrestleMania 37, where Jericho plugged AEW big time. It still boggles my mind that they allowed that. Exactly. And they let Sami Zayn talk about it. And they referenced it, and Triple H just referenced it. Oh, Vince will buy that pissant company too. Okay? Triple H is now running, and Triple H signed off on getting Vince away from WWE in years to come. Things change, Dave. Why lower yourself then? Okay, let's give you that. What WWE did was why be because you're a dude, man, with a bum and a attitude. And so Raj Giri says WWE let Chris Jericho do an interview with Austin on their TV immediately following WrestleMania 37, where Jericho plugged AEW big time. It still boggles my mind that they allowed that. That led to the following episode of Dynamite doing their best rating for the first half of 2021. Boom. Boom, Dave. Do you want them to get better ratings and do this goddamn thing? Then you better be down with the pause here. Like I said, just negotiate. Let Jerry Lawler, somebody pitch that. Let Jerry Lawler do commentary one Dynamite with JR. Let Sting wear his AEW Sting shirt and the face paint under his leather jacket to induct Luger. There you go. And Dave was like, well, Dave said this. He's like, tell them that they should advertise on our show. And it's like, what are you talking about, man? That's such another level. That's like millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, these marketing deals to have a Klondike bar. What would you do for a Klondike bar? Or drumstick or whatever the George was marking out about earlier, for Dave to be like, oh, advertise in place of Sting. Dude, Sting charges like $50K or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's a rate. You can get Sting to show up to a con for a rate. You're not about to those people buy marketing during WWE shows then. Like, that's such a crazy thing for Dave to say, for especially a private company that's a wrestling company. Oh yeah, they should advertise on WWE's public company on Netflix. Like, Dave, you're an idiot. But Raj Giri's like, that was a much bigger positive for AEW than Billy Gunn at the DX reunion or Danielson sending tape messages for John Cena. Exactly. It's like night and day difference. And then Meltzer responds and goes, WWE didn't let. AEW let. WWE asked. Like, oh my God, look at how cringe, Dave. It's so funny we have to play it now. So this right here, WWE didn't let. Okay, so WWE didn't let Billy Gunn, who's an AEW guy, on their TV. Them asking is still letting, Dave, okay? You ask your kid, hey, do you want to get ice cream? You're still letting them get ice cream, right, George?
Yes,
Klondikes, right? Absolutely, with Klondikes, right? You're still letting them do that. So here's the thing: they let Triple H say that, oh, he'll buy that pissant company. WWE has let Danielson or whatever as well. Like, you guys get what I'm getting at. It's just as much a let on both ends. They let RVD wrestle, but Dave just shows his bias and goes, WWE didn't let AEW let. Well, what the? They're both these companies. Like, it's so stupid. It's the dumbest thing ever. No, they both let, bro. And they both have asked, and they both, And AEW's asked WWE to stop showing Danielson. He's our contracted. They've done that too. Okay. When NXT started whooping ass. So it's so cringe to say this. And Raj Giri says, you're missing the point, but sure, they asked Jericho and they let all the AEW stuff stay in. Like WWE let Jericho talk about, and also, well, WWE let Jericho talk about Sammy Guevara and Big Show, and who just joined AEW at the time, and how one of his favorite tag partners is Guevara, and he's talking about what he's doing on Dynamite and going to AEW. Stone Cold asked him flat out. They let them do that just as much. And they didn't ask for Jericho. I'm pretty sure Jericho called Austin. And Austin's like, okay, let's do it, kid. What? I'm pretty sure Jericho told that story. So Dave is such a goof. But Raj says it was a big get for AEW to have their company plugged immediately after WrestleMania. I don't think you had many people subscribing to the network for that interview. So it was a huge net positive for AEW. More than anything, WWE gained from Billy Gunn doing the Hall of Fame. Yeah, and I think Billy Gunn's out of there too. So it's funny they're arguing about it. And then Dave's like, which was agreed upon. So you can't just say I concede. Which they all agreed upon. Oh, so they all agreed, so they both let. Huh, Dave figured it out. So they both parties let, because it was an agreement. It was agreed upon. Therefore, they both allowed, right? These exchanges and whatnot, Dave. So you just broke your own logic a moment later because you're dumb. And then Raj Giri says, again, back to the actual point, who benefited the most from it? Exactly. So this is what I mean. Dave doesn't actually care about pro wrestling. We'll stay around for more. Let's do some more, Dave. But Dave doesn't give a shit about pro wrestling. He just cares about his own agenda, and he doesn't care if that harms AEW in the long run as well. And that's absolutely showcased right there by Raj Giri. So Meltzer said what had this to say about Donald Meltzer. I mean, Dave Meltzer. So he just quotes it like, I went to an Ivy League school. So, well, let's first read Heel Uzi, who everybody hates in the IWC right now. Again, they're always like, he's such a E-drone. It's like, who cares though? There's accounts that are full-blown AEW drones. Who gives a right? It's funny how he just leans one way. If you can accept that, okay. If you can accept that about people, it's funny. But Dave Meltzer says, I'm using words with their actual meaning. So this is in response to a guy who's like, you're trying way too hard here, Dave. You're talking about narratives while also pushing them. I don't have a dog in this race, and the majority of people don't either. You're speaking to a very small niche, whatever is what he's getting at. And Dave goes, I'm using words with their actual meaning, not misusing the meaning for narrative purposes. Asked and let are not the same word nor synonymous. No, Dave, we just broke down why it was agreed upon. Okay? So you're playing semantics. With anything that happens on WWE TV, they let happen. It doesn't matter if they asked for it or not. Okay? Dave is playing semantics here. And that's what people are pointing out. And now Dave's going to go, oh, look, here's the thesaurus, here's the dictionary. No one's saying it's the same. You're just now playing funny with words to try and the same way you're like, well, Luger wasn't allowed on TV for Sting. No, it was a pay-per-view, Dave. And they didn't at the time do like streaming. Oh yeah, on Bleacher Report. Yeah, but the pay-per-view, you get it with the Bleacher Report thing. You're paying for the pay-per-view through Bleacher Report or whatever. It was a pay-per-view, man. This is a free thing they're uploading to Netflix. This is just a good plug for AEW. But he doesn't actually care about AEW, and that's why Tony Khan stopped by keeping this guy around. But Meltzer said that, just quotes Meltzer, who always brags about going to an Ivy League school. I'm highly educated. I know words. I have the best words, but there's no better word than stupid. Yeah, Meltzer's an idiot.
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. But there's no better word than stupid.
And then Dave Meltzer goes, Mark and the N-word are both derogatory, both demeaning terms. Inside wrestling, Mark and N-word both used similarly in that era. Never forget. Never forget. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the main event of the evening here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Dave Meltzer's dumb moment of the week.